What's up, Rolling with Carlos family? What's up, Gator Nation? Today we're going to do a reaction video in regards to Billy Napier's Monday's press conference. You'll probably see this before or after the video I just recorded in terms of a recap of the Texas A&M game with my co-host and friend of Gators Sports Illustrated, Dylan, about Monday's press conference. But I'm still going to do the reaction video because the reaction video to Billy Napier's press conference on Monday, December 13th. I mean, not December 13th. Apologize. October 13th. Because it's the way he was answering questions and the openness about the questions that has me questioning, does he really already know his fate? And he's just waiting for it to happen? It seems like he understands and feels the pressure and signs of him more than likely being fired from the University of Florida. He doesn't seem to have any type of worry, because just to leave the University of Florida is $20 million that the Gators have to come up with, and he'll be getting about roughly $10 million per month per year until the year 2028 or 2029. So let's listen to the press conference and then I'll give you my thoughts. But this is a totally different Billy Napier than we're used to. I'll give you my thoughts and you can leave your thoughts down in the comments. Do you believe Billy understands the pressure and the signs that he may soon be fired?
Who's ready to break down math?
I started posting math lessons on TikTok. I went from a class of 30 to teaching millions.
Your range is a range.
Now it's parents, teachers, all finding new ways to connect with math.
Discover thousands of top-rated products and feel the love, honey.
Defense can come up with the stuff.
This is a public service announcement. We're kicking off something new.
We're bringing sports, culture,
I got you.
and fun to your late night.
I'm trying to tell you.
106 in Sports. New series premieres tonight at 10 on BET.
Now, who's number one?
Obviously me.
Say less, I can.
On August 22nd, I told viewers that the road to artificial general intelligence was already bringing massive changes to society.
Okay, guys, a little bit of a recap from the game. I do think was proud of how the offensive unit started in the game, getting the ball the first possession. That was the plan, and I think the players executed well. We started slow on defense, probably for the first time this year, and dug a little bit of a hole. We did not play complementary throughout the entire game. We won the explosive battle. A&M won the turnover battle by 1. I do think the significant areas, in my opinion, are the rushing battle, 74 to 183, and then havoc rate was a big deal, right? I think that we struggled to create negative plays, no TFLs, no sacks, and then they obviously had 6 TFLs and affected our quarterback, sacked us a couple times in several hurries. Third down was a battle. We were average 9.5 yard distance, and they were average 4.5. So they kept third down manageable, and ultimately that allowed them to protect their quarterback and affect ours. So it's a 1-score game late in the fourth. Obviously, our team is really close. We have to learn how to finish. I think that's the third time this year on the road against a top 10 team where we're in a tight one. And we've got to get in. We got to get in position, and we got to finish these games. So there's a lot to learn here for our team. I do think there was fight, there was effort outside of the first couple possessions on defense. And look, I think in general here, what is required to play winning football? A&M has got a really good team, and I think they did what was necessary. So no time to waste here. obviously always a challenge to turn it around. I do think that it's a big week for us for a couple of different reasons. I do think it is homecoming. We try to do our best to educate the players on the importance of that, what they represent, who they represent, and then certainly playing an SEC opponent like Mississippi State at home. There'll be challenges with that coming off of the open date. It also is a Gator Made week for us, where we take time to celebrate, in my opinion, the best player development program in the country, Savannah Bailey and her staff, and all the things that they do throughout the year to invest in our players for the long term. I do think that if you dig into the details of the experience of our players, I think it's an incredible operation, and she is she's a great leader, and she takes great pride in that program, and I know it's impacted our players in a positive way. So we'll be emphasizing that and promoting that program all week. And then here comes Mississippi State off of a bye week. I do think that Jeff Levy's a really good coach. I think Jeff has done a great job with his offensive units in the past. They've been very productive, whether that's every stop along the way. And he's in year 2, and I think that he has turned the roster around. They have a huge number of new players. And I do think defensively they added wrinkles. I think it's year 2 as a program. You can see the improvement. They've been in some really tough SEC games the last couple of weeks against Tennessee and A&M. And I think they're tough. I think they play hard. And I respect what I see on the tape. So they've got Chapin as a vet quarterback, 2 really good backs, some speed at receiver, a tight end that's a mismatch player. And then defensively, just a lot of height, length, explosive, athletic players at first, second, and third level here. And that translates to the kicking game as well. So always a challenge when they've got an extra week to prepare for you. And then certainly for us, do we have the leadership and the maturity here to be able to flush what we experienced this weekend and start prepping for this one. So I do think there's lots of this one that are challenging, and it's going to be a big week from a leadership standpoint for the staff and our veteran players. What questions do we have?
I think I just looked this up. It's 30-0 in the last 2 games in the fourth quarter. What do you put your finger on? Depth, conditioning, and poise?
Yeah, the last 3 games. Does that include the Texas game?
7-0 Texas, 10-0 Texas.
Yeah, I think there's some 4-minute possessions there late. One of the things that's happened is I think we've gotten down. Texas, I feel confident with how we manage that at the end of the game. I think the big thing is A&M, the time of possession in the fourth quarter. We have the ball 3 possessions. There's 3 opportunities when it's a 1-score game when we can tie the game, and we didn't do anything with any of those 3 possessions, right? So after the 4th down at midfield, that possession was, I think, 8 minutes. They scored a touchdown, and then we go 1 play, sack fumble, and they get the ball back. So I think that's contributing to what you're the same thing can be said for the Miami game, right? We turn it over on downs, and they had the ball the majority of that quarter. So I think those are product of being ahead in the game, and then you get the ball, and you're able to rush the ball and milk the clock. So time of possession contributes to that stat.
But I mean, in terms of getting it stopped there, obviously if your defense can come up with a stop, then you get the ball back and stuff. Is that just fatigue on the defense's part, or what do you attribute that to?
I think that. Yeah, I think ultimately that's football, right? I think you got to get stops, and you got to make the most of your offensive possessions when you get them.
Beat yourself up a little bit over the 3rd and 4th down calls that led to that long drive for A&M. Do you go through that? How much have you gone through that in the last few days? Do you try to flush it, or you
Yeah, no, it's a coaching decision within the game. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, I think you can view it both ways. I think ultimately that's what we try to do. The analytics were very aggressive at that point, given the number of possessions that you could potentially have. Probably looking at 3 possessions. We're at midfield. We're a play away from being in scoring position. So, I think at that point in time, the number was aggressive. We went with the numbers. Do you punt them deep? I think the big thing would be the 3rd down, 2 down approach. We have to execute better on that play. Yeah. And then I think, that's the coaching decision of the game, right? So I do think you always evaluate those when they don't go the way you want them to. We've made those decisions in the past and they paid off. Sometimes they don't, so ultimately it comes down to the execution. You're going to be kicking yourself if you punt it and you get a bad hop and it's a touchback, right? So you think back to last year at Ole Miss, we were in a very similar situation. We punted them deep and it worked out. Right? We pinned them on the 7-yard line and got the ball back at midfield and made something of it. So I think those are the ones that
thought this translator was another scam. Now I want another one. My experience with the innings translator, honestly.
Always you think about it as a coach, and I think they can go both ways.
Your O-line goes from a near perfect game against Texas to a not so great game against A&M. Was it their scheme that was different, or just a bad day at the office by your guys?
Yeah, 1-for-1s. I think we our issue was we struggled to run it. Even when we're in advantage plays, where we've got a hat for a hat. I think good front. And I think in general, we need to be a little more precise at running back. And then there's individual matchups. We played from behind the sticks, and we're throwing runs up in there into light boxes. They're doubling receivers, and we're it's 2nd and 8. Or it's 2nd and 7. Or we're throwing it and we're struggling to protect, or the quarterback's getting hurried, or it's a sack. I do think that inefficiency on 1st and 2nd down led to play in 3rd and long, and those are tough days at the office. I mean, A&M had 11 3rd downs that were 5 or less. They were 9 for 11. They had 6 that were 6+, and they were 0 for 6, right? So, the numbers are always against you once it gets above 6, 7+, much less 12, So we had a handful of penalties, and then we had too many negative plays, too many inefficient runs against light boxes. They loaded the box early, and we threw it outside the corners, and then they started doubling those guys and mixing in some post-safety zone. So, in general, those are your typical week-to-week matchups. You gotta win your fair share.
Fourth down call. You guys had Eugene and Burnell as your inside receivers, and Dallas Wilson as your right outside receiver. With it being 4th and 6, why not go with Sturdivant in that situation as the other outside receiver instead of a tight end?
Because you basically tell them that you can only be in 6-man protection. Put 4 receivers out there, they know you can be 6-man or 5-man pro, and they can zero you out. As long as you got a tight end on the field, there's an opportunity that you can potentially be in 7-man pro. That's the conversations you have every week. So, but yeah, it's a good question. It's one that we talk about at times.
See more 4 wide receiver sets, just specifically with receivers.
Variables that you can create in the run game. And look, I think that when DJ is his inability to run the ball, the more spread out you are, the more you have to live in the RPO game, right? So you're creating gaps but then there's no quarterback run element, right? So everything is run or vertical RPO or perimeter tags, right? So when he can run, then you're opening up another scenario where you can create +1 plays, right? So him being limited in that capacity causes you to have to live in that world. So if you get 4 open sets and they play a 6-man box, you got issues. So your quarterback has to be able to run the ball. So it's a numbers game, right? And we know it. But those are the things that you deal with week to week based off of how healthy you are and who's available.
Big picture, looking around the country, coaches are getting fired left and right. Is it eye-opening when like a guy like James Franklin, who made the playoffs, 10 months ago, gets whacked after a couple of back-to-back bad games?
Look, I don't think anything's changed. I mean, I think that happens every year. It's what we sign up for, right? They pay us, they compensate us well, so these are challenging jobs, in today's climate in particular. So, look, we're all men. We're all competitors. We understand we live in a production world, and you got to produce, right? So there's no running from that. I mean, so it was that way when we signed up for it in the very beginning. They used to not pay us as well as they do now. So, but when you do get compensated and the amount of revenue that's generated in our game, I think the compensation, it's fair. I have no issue with that. I think
whoever invented this deserves a raise. Take a string and a pencil, twist off the faucet's old nozzle like this, then get the...
If you're at a place that doesn't have high expectations, then how much fun is that, right? So the challenge of playing against the best is why you do it as a competitor, right? So to see if you can do it, there's I think there's a leadership challenge, there's a competitive challenge, there's a strategy challenge. So look, we're at the top of the food chain here. We play against the very best every week. So Penn State's no different than that.
You play against tough competition every single week, but the struggles to win on the road in this league, just what do you pinpoint that to? Defensively especially, Miles Graham came out and said he didn't feel like the defense was ready for that start of the game. What do you pinpoint to having a better start on the road for this team?
Yeah, I think, I don't know what the numbers are, but in general, the home team has an advantage. It's probably worth a touchdown every week, all the gambling that goes on out there. But, look, especially in our league, regardless of the record even at times, the passion of the fan base, the way it affects communication, the momentum swings in the game, I think it's a real thing that no different than Texas coming in here last 2 weeks ago and having to play at our place. So I think, veteran teams typically that have experience play better. I think it's ultimately comes down to the players on the field decide what happens. They decide what happens. When you play a really good team and it happens to be on the road, I think there's a compound effect, right? So not only have we played really good teams on the road, but they're some of the best teams in the country.
You got to see Blake Shapen a little bit last year, before he got hurt, and seems like he's off to a pretty good start this year. Just a concern about him and Mississippi State's offense.
Yeah, Shapen's been playing ball for a long time. He was at Baylor. I think this is his third year as a starter. He's benefiting from being in the system for the second year. I do think there's the backs complement what they're trying to do there. So they've had a healthy running game, and then they've got some unique matchup players in the slot and outside. So continuity in system, he's benefiting from that. And he's a scrappy player. He's been very effective in his career. So there'll be things that come with him that we'll have to be prepared for. He can make some plays with his feet as well. So, yeah, he's off to a good start.
Question: what would you pinpoint has just been the overall reason why you guys have struggled on the road, especially against ranked teams?
Yeah, they're ranked teams and they're tough venues, and we're in position to make plays. We got to go make plays. There's opportunities for us to coach better at times and put our players in better positions at times, right? So I think all things contribute to it: the quality of the opponent, the personnel matchups, the schematic matchups, and then the environment, right? All. This is. Let's don't make it any more complicated than it's not. Let's don't overanalyze this, right? So good teams, tough venues, personnel battles, and schematic battles, and then the ability to execute with consistency, the ability to communicate in those environments. It's nothing more than that. So I do think that we have areas where we can help our players, and I think we have areas where our players can help themselves. So they know it. They know these players, right? They know what matchups are going to be important. They know that they're in for a full day's work, and so does the other team when they play us, right? So we have an advantage when we play at home. Our crowd is a significant factor. And, but I think that have the maturity to be able to focus on your communication, your fundamentals, your techniques, and then your precision and how you execute. Ultimately, that's what decides the game. So I think you got to embrace playing on the road as a competitor. You got to look forward to the opportunity. I mean, these are ones that you sign up for.
Kind of conversations many of you have with Scott just about how this season has gone and where things stand with your program.
Yeah, we meet every week. We have a chance to catch up about what's going on, and I think that he's a great teammate, and we know it's not good enough. No one loves to lose, and I think we're identifying areas we can improve and things we need to do better. It's much like any.
I hear you say it's hard to find a good pair of jeans. Family, if you just
any production business, there's things you got to do better to get a better result. So nothing more than that. We all know what the job is. We got to wake up every day and go do your job. So that's the way I view it.
What you said about the advantage of playing at home, what would your message ahead of homecoming be to fans who are maybe a little demoralized, apathetic, and have kind of had their support in you waver?
Yeah, I think it'd be one thing if you had a group that lacked discipline, or the effort was poor, or there wasn't fight, or the games weren't close. I think that our players are showing up every day. They're practicing the right way. They're working their ass off. They're doing it with some class, in my opinion. And I think that they care about doing their job for the university, for our fan base, and the university community in general, and their teammates, right? Won't back down in all kinds of weather. That's what we do here, right? So we haven't got the result that we want. We know that. Our players know that. Certainly our alumni and fans know. But this week homecoming is unique because it's an opportunity to come back. It's an opportunity to sit in that stadium and think about a lot of the great memories that you made while you were here. I think for our players, it's an opportunity to see the big picture in terms of who they represent. And look, they're representing themselves, their family, but there's a bigger picture approach here. I mean, they're going to be a Gator for the rest of their lives. And I think I always tell them, I say, look, there's going to be a day 10, 15 years from now where you bring your family back. You're sitting in there and you're going to want to be proud of how the team represents itself. So I think that we get that. We're not. We know the results have been challenging at times so far this year, but that has nothing to do with this is a new day. It's a new week, and it's all we control. So we got it. This group has got some character, and they care, and they will take great pride in playing and competing a certain way Saturday. You can bet on that, and I think they. This is a big picture game, in my opinion, in that regard. So, you can put that orange and blue on. I still think that exists. I know college football has changed quite a bit, but I do think that we got a lot of guys that came here. It means something for them to pursue the degree here, to be a graduate one day, to come back here and call this place home. And I think you represent the place and the people with how you compete on Saturday. Now, and this next Saturday is our next opportunity, right? So you got to be tough-minded in this game. It's a new week, it's a new day, it's a new week. And we got to turn around and prepare a certain way and get ready to represent this place the right way on Saturday.
An example of maybe the frustration, though, Sharif Denson, they caught him on camera throwing water at the fans. Looked like he was taunted a little bit. I don't know if Sharif relayed to you maybe what was said, and you kind of teach players to kind of maybe block that stuff out when it happens.
Yeah, no, we're excited about this opportunity this week. Look, Mississippi State's got a good football team. We're at home in front of our fans. And I think it's important that we turn our attention towards how we prepare for this next opportunity.
How much does the grind and the pressure, does that diminish the joy of coming to work every day and coaching?
Look, we've been on both ends of the spectrum. A lot of it for me is the gratitude of seeing the players get the result. I think for me, and then the challenge of going against the absolute best. So that doesn't go away. Now there's obviously, you go through the emotions of losing and all that, but I think ultimately as a leader, you got an obligation to the people you're leading, right? That's the staff and the players. And I do think, there's no winning without losing, if that makes sense. There's no happiness without disappointment, so I think we've experienced both ends of the spectrum, and it requires courage to do it, and you got to work a certain way to achieve a goal, and sometimes you don't get the results you want. So there's no growth without struggle, I think we don't improve unless we put ourselves out there, So in general, these are young people.
Hello, I'm Peter Hillary. My father, Sir Edmund Hillary, forced his mountaineering skills.
They're learning a lot about life through the game, and in general, there's a ton of life lessons come from maybe coming up short. You got to balance that with the competitive spirit and the bottom line production of the business. So for me, ultimately, I always think about the players and keeping them at the core of what we do. You got to have a great pulse and great awareness of how they're thinking, where they're at, and you got to build your message around that and your plan around that. That's ultimately what we've tried to do.
You touched on this earlier, but how much does DJ's limitedness affect you guys offensively in terms of that RPO? I mean, like most of the league has quarterbacks who can run and do things in that +1 scenario.
Yeah, no, I think it's the intention. That's why we recruit a guy like him. So we've always tried to get an athlete, and even Graham Mertz. although maybe was considered a pocket passer, made a lot of plays with his feet. We were able to use him in the Reed game. So, yeah, I mean, you think about this game last year, the Kentucky game last year, when DJ was healthy and able to run, it just changed the game. So, but look, nobody's worried about that, I mean, you got to take what you got, and you got to try to put a product out there that can help the team win. So, as he gets healthier, we'll be, that's part of it.
Last time that you guys were close a couple times this year, there kind of a sense of urgency to kind of get there, seeing that it's kind of now or never.
Say that one more time.
You mentioned a couple times this season that this team's been close a couple weeks now. Is there kind of a sense of urgency to kind of get there with this team because, you're 2-4 and then 2-4 is kind of now or never?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, there's no one that has more urgency or passion or work ethic, intensity, desire than our players, so they're the ones that do the work every day. I think it's that's the respectable thing about it is they continue to do the work the right way. We got to get the details right on game day, and they know that, and we know that. So, look, win, lose, or draw, it's time to turn the page and move on to the next one, and that's the key. You got to focus, get consumed with the prep and the work, and to be quite honest, that allows you to eliminate some of the noise and distractions if you consume your time with the work around preparing for each week's game. So players are no different than the staff. You guys got a job to do. You got stories to write about last week, this week. Our job is to get ready for the next challenge. So that's the approach we take. Okay, guys.
All right, guys. Billy Napier seemed to be very open. Seems like he's more open than usual. When they asked him about Franklin, the Penn State head coach, he basically answered, it's a production profession, and if you don't produce, we will still get paid, even if we get fired. He said that the three phases pretty much failed in last week's game against Texas A&M, but there was a lot less coach speak this press conference, and he was answering honestly and open. To me, he's starting to feel the pressure of more than likely being fired from the University of Florida. He also finally fully admitted that DJ Lagway is not 100%, hasn't been 100% since last season, so his offense cannot run RPOs the way they should run. He's being very open. To me, he's seeing the signs on the wall. I could be reading the tea leaves wrong, but it seems to me that he understands he's got 1 foot in and 1 foot out of being the head coach at the University of Florida. Leave me your comments down below. Do you think Billy Napier is reading the tea leaves? Do you think Scott Strickland's going to pull the trigger and officially fire Billy Napier either this week, the week after, or after the Georgia game, or after the season? Or is Scott Strickland really listening to the fan base and the boosters? Let me know your thoughts down below, and like always, stay positive, stay on your grind, and go Gators.